It is 11:47 on a Tuesday night. You're in bed. Your phone is face down on the nightstand. You have been pretending it is face down because you are tired, but you know exactly why it is face down. Because every time the screen lights up, it is another alert, another number, another percentage that used to be your retirement and is now a math problem you do not know how to solve. You have done everything they told you to do. You started a 401k in your 20s, you set it to auto-contribute, you did not touch it during the pandemic, not even when you were terrified, and you were very terrified. You let it ride through 2022. You told yourself it always comes back. And it did, every time. Until now, when the red numbers on the screen feel different from every other time they were red, because this time you understand what is in them. Your retirement, your kid's college fund. 7 years of discipline, sitting in a brokerage account that is currently down 19% from its February peak. And on TV, the people who are supposed to explain this are arguing with each other in real time. My name is Jay. I spent an embarrassing amount of time this week reading every piece of Federal Reserve data, LPL research report, and historical market analysis I could find on what happens to investments during crashes like this, because I wanted to give you a number, not a feeling. Here's what that research actually shows. On April 2nd, 2025, the Trump administration announced what it called Liberation Day tariffs, sweeping new import duties on nearly every major trading partner the United States has. The markets, which had been nervous for weeks, stopped being nervous and started being something else.
In the 2 trading days that followed, the S&P 500 lost just under 11%. The Nasdaq Composite fell more than 20% from its December 2024 highs, the technical definition of a bear market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed more than 1,500 points on back-to-back days for the first time in recorded history. According to S&P Dow Jones indices, American investors lost more than $5 trillion in market value in 48 hours. I want you to sit with that number for 1 second. $5 trillion. That is roughly equal to the entire GDP of Japan disappearing from American brokerage accounts in 2 days. Then China retaliated with its own tariffs. Then the administration raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 104%. Then a 90-day pause was announced. Then the pause was extended. Then half of all imports were quietly exempted. The market swung up, then down, then partially recovered, then fell again on the news of the current Iran conflict. This is not chaos. This is what uncertainty pricing looks like. And understanding the difference between the two is the single most important thing you can do with your money right now. Let me give you a framework that no financial news segment has time to actually explain. Every time something terrifying happens, a war, a tariff shock, a pandemic, a bank collapse, the market does not react to the event itself. It reacts to the uncertainty that event creates. Markets can price in bad news. They can price in recession risk. They can price in lower earnings forecasts and higher inflation. What they cannot price in is not knowing which of those futures they are living in. This is what I call the uncertainty premium. It is not the damage itself. It is the cost of not knowing the size of the damage. And the uncertainty premium always looks exactly the same. A sharp, terrifying, feels like the end of the world drop, followed by a stabilization as information comes in, followed by a recovery that happens faster than most people expect. According to analysis by LPL Research examining every major geopolitical shock since World War II, Pearl Harbor, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Gulf War, September 11th, Russia-Ukraine, the average S&P 500 drawdown following these events was 4.4%. The average time to reach the bottom was 18 days. The average
recovered to pre-shock levels was 39 days. 18 days to the bottom, 39 days back to where you started. Not years, not a generation. Just over a month. Now, the tariff shock was not the average geopolitical event. The April 2025 crash was the worst 2-day stretch for the S&P 500 since March 2020. It was the 4th worst 2-day sell-off since 1950. The uncertainty premium this time was larger than most. But even then, the S&P 500 fully recovered and hit a new all-time high by June 27, 2025. The people who sold in April missed every single dollar of that recovery. Here is the part one had to verify twice because the number did not look right the first time I read it. According to Hartford Funds research, examining every armed conflict since World War II, the S&P 500 was higher 1 year after the onset of conflict, approximately 70% of the time. Not 40%, not 50-50, 70%. The average 1-year return following these events, across all of them, including the ones that ended badly in the short term, was in the high single digits. Why? Because the stock market does not run on headlines. It runs on corporate earnings, interest rates, economic growth, and innovation. Geopolitical events disrupt those forces temporarily. They almost never change the long-term direction of them. A conflict ends, a tariff pause becomes a trade deal, and oil shock eases as supply adjusts. The underlying economy does what it has always done, which is grow, unevenly and imperfectly, and with significant pain along the way, but grow. The exception to this pattern is worth naming specifically. Research from LPL shows that when a shock coincides with a pre-existing recession, the recovery takes longer. The average 12-month post-shock return near recessions was -9%. But when a shock occurs during an economic expansion with no underlying recession, like April 2025, the average 12-month return was positive 9.8%.
This is not a prediction. It is a distribution of historical outcomes, but it is a very different distribution than the one the financial news would have you believe you are living in. Now let me talk about the specific mistake that costs the most money. It is not losing money in a crash. Crashes are participation fees for being in the market. The specific mistake is selling during the crash and missing the recovery. This sounds obvious when I describe it this way. It sounds like something you would never do. Here's what it actually looks like when you are inside it. The market drops 11%. You watch, but you do not sell because you remember 2020. Then it drops another 5%. Now you are down 16%. Then the news says a recession is coming. The word stagflation starts appearing in articles you never asked to read. Your brother-in-law texts you asking if you pulled out yet. You check your balance on a Thursday afternoon and the number is smaller than it was a year ago. That is when the narrative changes. It stops being a temporary dip and starts being evidence that something is fundamentally broken this time. That is the uncertainty premium speaking directly into your fear centers. And it has a very specific financial cost. According to research on S&P 500 returns, missing just the 10 best trading days over a 20-year period cuts your total return roughly in half. Missing the 20 best days reduces it by about 2/3. Here is the part that makes this statistic devastating. The best days and the worst days cluster together. The biggest gains in market history happen within weeks of the biggest losses. If you sell during the crash, you are almost certain to miss the beginning of the recovery. This happened in 2020. The market dropped 34% in 5 weeks. Then, before most people processed what was happening, it was back. The entire drawdown recovered in 4 months. The fastest bear market recovery in 150 years of recorded market history. The people who sold at the bottom missed a 120% gain over the next 5 years.
Let me give you some numbers on what this costs at the individual level, because large percentages are easy to minimize when they are abstract. The median 401k balance in America, according to Vanguard's How America Saves 2025 report, is $38,176. The average is $148,153, but the average is pulled up by high balance savers, so the median is the more honest number. Take someone with $100,000 401k balance, which puts them somewhere between the median and average. If the market drops 20%, that account is now $80,000. If that person sells and moves to cash at the bottom and then waits to re-enter until they feel safe, which research consistently shows means buying back in after a partial recovery, they have locked in a loss and bought back in higher. Over a 30-year period, the S&P 500 has averaged approximately 10% annually before inflation. A $100,000 investment left alone for 30 years at 10% becomes $1.74 million. A $100,000 investment that misses 10 years of compounding because of a panic exit and a cautious reentry becomes $672,000. The difference between those two outcomes is not intelligence. It is not skill. It is one decision made during a period of maximum fear. That gap, $1.07 million, is the lifetime financial cost of a single well-intentioned panic. There's a concept called the visibility trap that I want to name here, because I think it explains something important about why this keeps happening to otherwise rational people. The visibility trap works like this. When the market is gaining, your portfolio is a number you check occasionally and feel good about. When it is falling, it becomes the only number in your life. It appears on your phone screen. It is discussed at dinner. Your coworkers ask if you have seen what the market is doing. It becomes impossible to ignore, and impossible to ignore things feel more dangerous than they are.
The people who designed your brokerage app's notification settings did not do that accidentally. You can see your balance in real time because making you emotionally engaged with short-term fluctuations keeps you in the app. A farmer who checks the soil moisture every 30 seconds and adjusts their irrigation 3 times a day does not grow more food, they grow less, because the intervention disrupts the natural process. Your retirement account works the same way. Checking it daily during a crash is not responsible. It is the mechanism through which the visibility trap turns temporary market volatility into permanent financial damage. There is one scenario where everything I have said becomes more complicated, and I am going to name it specifically, because ignoring it would be dishonest. If you are within 5 years of retirement, within 5 years of actually needing to withdraw and live on this money, a market crash is not just a paper loss, it is a sequence of returns problem. Withdrawing from a portfolio during a down year locks in the loss permanently. There is no waiting for the recovery if you need the cash to pay rent. This is the one group for which the standard stay the course advice requires modification. Not abandonment, modification. The standard recommendation from financial planners, based on Federal Reserve data showing Americans of retirement age spend an average of $59,616 per year, is to keep 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or short-term bonds, separate from your equity portfolio. That buffer means you never have to sell stocks at the bottom. You draw from the buffer while the market recovers. When the recovery arrives, and based on 150 years of data, it arrives, your equity holdings are intact. If you do not have that buffer, building it is not a retreat from the market. It is the infrastructure that lets you stay in the market without being forced out at the worst possible moment. Let me tell you what this crash is not. It is not a structural failure of the American economy. Corporate earnings for S&P 500 companies grew 13.4% in the fourth quarter of 2025, above what analysts expected. Consumer spending from middle and upper income households remained stable through the tariff shock. The economy absorbed the policy changes faster than the headlines suggested it would.
It is not unique. Since 1950, the S&P 500 has experienced an intraday decline of 10% or more in more than half of all calendar years, and still ended those years positive more often than not. Midterm election years like 2026, according to historical data going back to 1934, average a peak-to-trough decline of just over 20%. They are also typically followed by robust recoveries that go on to set new highs. It is not evidence that you made wrong choices. You followed the rules. The rules still work. They just do not feel like they work when you are inside a 17% drawdown. What I want you to do right now is the following. Not because it will make the red numbers go away faster, it will not, but because it is the version of this moment that 5 years from now, you will be glad you chose. Step 1. Do not sell. Not unless you are within 5 years of retirement and have no cash buffer, in which case, build the buffer first. Step 2. If you can, keep contributing. Dollar cost averaging into a down market is how ordinary investors build extraordinary long-term returns. You are buying shares at a discount right now. The market's low price is the one time it is genuinely on sale. Step 3. Turn off the notifications. Not permanently. For 30 days. The visibility trap costs money. Reducing visibility reduces the probability of an emotional decision. Step 4. Check your allocation, not your balance. Make sure your equity to bond ratio still matches your timeline and risk tolerance. If it does, there is nothing to do. Here is where the difference shows up in actual numbers. 2 people, both 35 years old, both with $75,000 in a 401k, both watching the same crash right now. Person 1 sells in April when the portfolio hits down 20%, moves to a money market fund at a 4.5% yield, waits 14 months for clarity, re-enters the market when it feels safe again, which means buying in after a partial recovery at prices that are 15% higher than where they sold.
5 years from now, at 40, that account is worth approximately $112,000. They preserved capital during the crash and earned modest interest in the money market, but they missed the recovery rally, bought back in higher, and lost years of compounding at their peak earning stage. Person 2 does nothing, keeps contributing the same amount every paycheck, stays in the same diversified index funds, does not look at the balance for 30 days. 5 years from now, at 40, that account is worth approximately $189,000. Same starting point, same income, same monthly contribution. Different by $77,000. $77,000. Not because one of them was smarter, not because one of them had access to better information or a better broker, because one of them made one decision during the worst month and the other made no decision at all. The single most powerful financial tool available to you right now is doing nothing. Not passively, intentionally, deliberately, with the knowledge of what 150 years of market history says about moments exactly like this one. The crash has begun. It has also always been happening, and it has also always ended. That is not optimism. It is the one financial pattern that is held through world wars, depressions, pandemics, trade wars, and political chaos. The people who came out ahead were not the ones who predicted the bottom. They were the ones who were still invested when the bottom stopped being the bottom. I want to know one thing from you. What is the hardest part of staying invested right now? Is it watching the balance drop, or is it the feeling that this time might actually be different? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.